right, so we have just finished reading the section where we talk about Aeolus and how he gave them the winds, and then we also went through the Lastrygonians, this land of giants, who ate a lot of Odysseus's men and sank every ship except one. Now we will continue Book 10 from there. From there we sailed on, glad to escape our death, yet sick at heart for the dear companions we had lost. We reached the Aeaean Islands next, the home of Circe, the nymph with lovely braids, an awesome power too who can speak with human voice, the true sister of murderous-minded Aeetes. Both were bred by the sun who lights our lives. Their mother was Perse, a child the ocean bore. We brought our ship to port without a sound, as a god eased her into a harbor safe and snug. And for 2 days and 2 nights we lay by there, eating our hearts out, bent with pain and bone tired. So they've just lost, almost all of their men, and they finally sail on. They are safe. Remember, and this is because Odysseus refused to park his boat, essentially, right? He refused to port inside the cliffs like all the other men did. So Odysseus just cut his ship free from the cliffs and was able to sail away fairly quickly. They go from the Lastrygonians directly to the home of Circe. Circe is often called the nymph with lovely braids. We're going to see Odysseus call a lot of people nymphs with glossy braids, nymphs with lovely braids. It is kind of this reoccurring image that happens, just like the fingers of young Dawn with her rose-red fingers. This repetition is what makes this part of poetry, right? This is a poem. It is meant to be read as a poem. And so there's a lot of imagery and a lot of repetition, a lot of parallelism that goes on in this story. We get a little background on Circe. We have, she's the sister of Aeetes. Her father is the sun who lights up everything. Their mother is Perse, who is a child of the ocean. And they bring their ship into port very silently. No one hears them. And they stay there for 2 days and 2 nights. It says they were eating their hearts out, right? They're feasting. But they're in pain. They're bone tired. They're sad. They're upset. They've lost all these men. So they have to have some sort of release from that. When Dawn with her lovely locks brought on the 3rd day, at last I took my spear and my sharp sword again, rushed up from the ship to find a lookout point, hoping to catch a glimpse of some sign of human labor, catch some human voices. I scaled a commanding crag and, scanning hard, I could just make out some smoke from Circe's hall, drifting up from the broad terrain through brush and woods. So after 2 days of just kind of sitting there feeling sorry for themselves and eating all the food on board the ship, Odysseus decides to do something. They don't have enough provisions. They don't have enough food to continue on. So Odysseus gets up and looks around. He's hoping to find any sign of humans. So he's looking for any sign of human labor, like trees cut, roads made, buildings, houses, any sort of farm, anything that would suggest humans were there. He's hoping to maybe hear someone who sounds human at the very least, but he doesn't really find anything except for some smoke, right? And this smoke is coming from Circe's hall, although he doesn't know that yet, right? He doesn't know it's Circe yet. All he knows is that there's some smoke. And he knows that smoke means fire, and fire generally means some sort of human or nymph or goddess or something that maybe he can talk to, maybe he can reason with. Mulling it over, I thought I'd scout the ground, that fire aglow in the smoke I saw it true, but soon enough this seemed the better plan. I'd go back to shore and the swift ship first, feed the men, then send them out for scouting. So mulling it over just means to think it over. Right, so he's thinking it over, and he thinks, oh, I will scout around. I will go ahead. I will be the one to go ahead and figure out what this is. I can see the fire. I can see the smoke. So I will go do it. But then he thinks of a different plan. His new plan, he's going to go back to the ship, make sure everyone eats, and then send his men out to scout. This may seem selfish, right? This may seem very selfish for Odysseus, but remember, Odysseus is in charge. He's the captain. He's kind of the guy that everyone looks to. So if he were to go without telling anyone where he went, there would be some sort of an issue, right? So Odysseus has sailed here. They've anchored on Circe's island. They rested for 2 days. His men are not tired anymore. And then Odysseus leaves. He goes out hunting, and he decides he's going to bring back some food for his men already and send them out to look at the smoke. I was well on my way down, nearing our ship, when a god took pity on me, wandering all alone. He sent me a big stag with high branching antlers right across my path. The sun's heat forced him down from his forest range to drink at river's bank. Just bounding out of the timber when I hit him square in the backbone, halfway down the spine, and my bronze spear went punching clean through. He dropped in the dust, groaning, gasping out his breath. Odysseus has killed a deer, which is great. He's going to be able to bring a deer back to his men, and they're going to have a feast, and it's going to be wonderful. Until we learn something about the animals on this island, this is great. Once we figure out later in the chapter what the animals actually are, this may not be the best thing Odysseus has done. Treading on him, he walked across him. I wrenched my bronze spear from the wound, left it there on the ground, and, snapping off some twigs and creepers, twisted a rope about a fathom long. I braided it tight, hand over hand, then lashed the 4 hocks of that mighty beast. Loaded round my neck, I lugged him toward the ship, trudging, propped on my spear, no way to sling him over a shoulder, steadying him with one free arm. The kill was so immense. Odysseus here is just telling us how big the deer is that he killed. And this type of showing off, this is pretty common for hunters who will tell all sorts of stories about, oh, it was so giant, so big, I couldn't carry it. So Odysseus is telling us how he got such a giant, magnificent kill back to his men. He tied it up and he hung it off of his spear and dragged it there. I flung him down by the hull and roused the men, giving them all a word to lift their spirits. Listen to me, my comrades, brothers in hardship. We won't go down to the house of death, not yet, not till our day arrives. Up you look, there's still some meat and drink in our good ship. Put our minds on food, why die of hunger here? So Odysseus brings the deer back and flings him down by the hull, or the side of the ship. He rouses the men, he gets them up, he gets them moving, and he says, "Listen, we will not die here. Not yet. Not till the gods decide it's time for our death. Look around you. There's this giant deer here, so there's plenty of meat. We still have drink on our ship, so focus on food, right? Don't die of hunger. Focus on food." My hearty urging brought them round at once. Heads came up from cloaks, and there by the barren sea they gazed at the stag, their eyes wide, my noble trophy. But once they'd looked their fill and warmed their hearts, they washed their hands and prepared a splendid meal. So, of course, these men are sad. Sorry about the right-clicking. Of course, these men are sad. They've lost 11 out of 12 of their ships and all of the people with them. They've lost people to being eaten by Cyclops, to being eaten by Lastrygonians, to just being lost. So of course they're sad. They're upset. But Odysseus's words, his hearty urging, brings them around at once, meaning all of a sudden they change their tune. They become happier. Their heads come up. They're no longer buried in their cloaks. And by the seaside, they look at this deer, this stag that is killed, and they stare at it. And then they think about how beautiful the stag is. They look at it until they finally realize, oh wait, we have to eat this. And then they wash their hands and they prepare a meal. Now all day long till the sun went down, we sat and feasted on sides of meat and seasoned wine. Then when the sun had set and night came on, we lay down and slept at the water's shelving edge. So they ate, they drank, they fell asleep. When young Dawn with her rose-red fingers shone once more, I called a muster quickly, informing all the crew, "Listen to me, my comrades, brothers in hardship. We can't tell east from west, the dawn from the dusk, nor where the sun that lights our lives goes under earth, nor where it rises. We must think of a plan at once, some cunning stroke. I doubt there's one still left." I scaled a commanding crag, and from that height surveyed an entire island, ringed like a crown by endless wastes of sea. But the land itself lies low, and I did see smoke drifting up from its heart through thick brush and woods. So dawn comes, the morning, and they wake up, and Odysseus, he calls a muster, meaning he just gets everyone together, and he tells everyone, "Listen." And then he uses hyperbole, right? He uses this exaggeration. He says, "Listen, we don't know east from west. We don't know day from night. We can't see the sun as it rises or as it goes down. We have to think of some sort of plan. Now I climbed up to the very top of this cliff, and there I saw an island surrounded by sea. There's nowhere to go. But most of this island is flat, and I saw on this flat island some smoke drifting up from the brush and the woods." So Odysseus tells them, "Yesterday I went on a hike, got you this deer, but I also saw some smoke." My message broke their spirits as they recalled the gruesome work of the Lastrygonian king Antiphates and the hardy cannibal Cyclops thirsting for our blood. They burst into cries, wailing, streaming live tears that gained us nothing. What good can come of grief? All right, they're thinking back, and they're like, oh, man, really? So the last time we saw smoke and we thought these people were people, they were the Lastrygonians, and they killed all of the rest of the ships and all of our men. The last time before that, it was a Cyclops who ate men and chased us down and almost drowned our ship. So of course they're going to start crying. They're scared. They're terrified. Every time they go off looking for humans, somebody dies. But Odysseus says, hey, stop. Stop crying. Stop being so worried about this. What good can come of grief? He just kind of says, look, crying doesn't do us any good. We have to figure something out. Just being upset or being scared is not going to save us. And so, numbering off my band of men-at-arms into 2 platoons, I assigned them each a leader. I took one and Eurylochus the other. We quickly shook lots in a bronze helmet. The lot of brave Eurylochus leapt out first. So what they've done is they've split the crew into 2. Odysseus is in charge of one, Eurylochus is the other. They put everyone's name into this hat, and they shake it up, and then Eurylochus, his name is drawn. So he is going to be the one to investigate this smoke. So he moved off with his 22 comrades, so there's 23 of them, weeping, leaving us behind in tears as well. Now, of course, they're still going to be upset, and they're still going to be scared. Odysseus told them, hey, crying doesn't do us any good, but at the same time, these men are scared. And every time they split up, somebody dies, and they never see each other again. So both groups are crying because they think something will happen to Eurylochus and his crew, or something will come upon Odysseus and his crew, and they will be the ones to die. But in their heads, they don't think they will ever see each other again. That's why they're crying. Deep in the wooded glens, they came on Circe's palace, built of stone, dressed on a cleared rise of land. Mountain wolves and lions were roaming the grounds. She'd bewitched them herself. She gave them magic drugs. But they wouldn't attack my men. They just came pawing up around them, fawning, swishing their long tails, eager as hounds that fawn around their master, coming home from a feast, who always brings back scraps to calm them down. So here they find Circe's palace, and it is surrounded by terrifying animals. It's surrounded by wolves and lions, but instead of attacking the men, these wolves and lions just sort of become friendly. They come up like dogs, and they paw at the men, and they have their long tails wagging, and they're just happy to see new people. So they came nuzzling around my men, lions, wolves with big, powerful claws, and my men cringed in fear at sight of those strange, ferocious beasts. But still, they paused at her doors, the nymph with lovely braids, Circe, and deep inside they heard her singing, lifting her spellbinding voice as she glided back and forth at her great immortal womb, her enchanting web, a shimmering glory only goddess can weave. So the men are a little scared by the lions and the wolves, but they hear Circe singing, and they stop at her doors. And this is Odysseus making some things up, but he thinks that Circe is inside weaving something, right? We generally weave blankets or tapestries, and Odysseus will see this tapestry later, but we don't know that she is actually doing it right now. Of course, Odysseus is telling the story, and he's not even here. He is back by the ship. So this is Odysseus telling the story that probably Eurylochus told him after Eurylochus experienced it. Polites, captain of armies, took command, the closest, most devoted man I had. Friends, there's someone inside plying a great loom, and how she sings, enthralling. The whole house is echoing to her song. Now later on, we're going to hear more about the power of music. The sirens are going to sing a song that will make men crash their ships and die. Music has a great, great power in this story. Goddess or woman, let's call out to her now. So Polites, who is Odysseus's most devoted man, says, "Hey, let's go inside." That voice sounds really beautiful, and we don't care if it's a goddess or a woman or something else. Let's go inside. Now this makes sense in a couple ways. One, the Lastrygonian king who ate all the men was male. Two, the Cyclops who ate all the men was male. And three, these men have been alone at sea without women for a very long time. So of course, they would want to go in and talk to this woman and possibly do more. So he urged, and the men called out and hailed her. She opened her gleaming doors at once and stepped forth, inviting them all in, and in they went, all innocents. So Polites has convinced the men to call out to Circe. She immediately opens the doors for them, and all of the men go in except Eurylochus. Only Eurylochus stayed behind. He sensed a trap. She ushered them to sit on high-backed chairs. Then she mixed them a potion, cheese, barley, and pale honey, mulled in Pramnian wine. But into the brew she stirred her wicked drugs to wipe from their memories any thought of home. So Eurylochus is outside. The rest of the men have come inside. And she sits them at a beautiful table. High-backed chairs are pretty darn fancy at this time. She gives them cheese and barley and pale honey that are mulled together with wine. They're mixed into wine. And so the wine tastes like cheese and barley and honey. And into that wine, she stirs in some sort of drugs, some sort of potion that will wipe away any memory. Like with the Lotus Eaters, memory plays a big role in this story. As they lose their memories, they lose any sense of why they are traveling. Once they drained their bowls she filled, suddenly she struck them with her wand, drove them into pigsties, all of them bristling into swine, with grunts, snouts, even their bodies, yes, and only the men's minds stayed steadfast as before. So they drink their bowls of wine, right? And generally at this time, wine was served in bowls. And it wipes their memory clean. And then Circe turns them into pigs, right? They bristle into swine. They turn into pigs. They sound like pigs. They grunt. They have snouts like pigs. Their bodies change like pigs. Only their minds remain as men. So off they went to their pens, sobbing, squealing as Circe flung them acorns, cornel nuts, and mast, common fodder for hogs that root and roll in mud. So Circe is treating them like pigs. So let's go back to the beginning of this story with Circe. Odysseus and the only ship he has left anchors on Circe's island. They rest there for 2 days, and then Odysseus goes out. He sees some smoke, he kills a deer, and he brings it back. The men have a feast, they go to sleep, and the next morning, Odysseus separates them into 2 groups, and Eurylochus's group goes on to search for Circe. When they come to Circe's palace, they hear her singing, and they call out to her, and she welcomes them. They come inside except Eurylochus, and she welcomes them to her table. She mixes a potion into their wine that erases their memories, and then she uses her wand to turn them into pigs. Now the men are not crying because they've lost all sorts of friends before. They're crying out of fear. Fear for their own lives, fear for the lives of the rest of their friends. And Odysseus points out this really isn't that useful, right? Circe erases their memories, and they're still crying. They're still sobbing. She turns them into pigs at once. We could interpret this to mean that when a person has no memories, no desires, no goals, they're just like an animal. Memory, desire, goals, these are the things that separate us from animals. And this is, a person stripped of the most important human quality, the ability to think, to remember, to reason. Alrighty. So Eurylochus is the only one safe. Back Eurylochus ran to our swift black ship to tell the disaster our poor friends had faced. But try as he might, he couldn't get a word out. Right? So Eurylochus runs back to tell them what has happened, but no matter what he does, he can't seem to talk. Numbing sorrow had stunned the man to silence. Tears welled in his eyes, his heart possessed by grief. So he is too sad to talk. We assailed him with questions, all at our wits' end, till at last he could recount the fate our friends had met. So they ask him all these questions, but he can't answer because he's so sad. They're going crazy, right? They're like at their wits' end. They're frustrated and angry and upset, and they want answers. But finally, they keep asking him questions until he gains control of himself and says what actually happened. The men went to Circe, and they turned into pigs. Off we went through the brush, Captain, as you commanded. Deep in the wooded glens we came upon Circe's palace, built of dressed stone on a cleared rise of lamb. Someone inside was plying a great loom, and how she sang in a clear, high voice. Goddess or woman, we called out and hailed her. So again, we have the repetition because this is, of course, a poem. You'll also notice that Eurylochus is sort of blaming the captain sort of blaming Odysseus. "Look, sir, we went through the brush. We went into the woods, just like you told us to. You said, you commanded. We came to Circe's palace. It's stone, and it's on this cleared area of land, so there's no trees around it. Someone inside is plying a great loom, right? Someone inside is weaving and singing. And the song was so beautiful, we called out and hailed her. She opened her gleaming doors at once and stepped forth, inviting us all in, and in we went all innocent, but I stayed behind. I sensed a trap. Suddenly all vanished. Suddenly all vanished, blotted out. Not one face showed again, though I sat there keeping watch a good long time." Eurylochus doesn't know exactly what has happened to the men. He didn't see them get turned into pigs, but he does know they didn't come back. And with this crew's history, they're probably dead. They're not, but Eurylochus assumes they are, because that's what just happens. At that report, I slung the hefty bronze blade of my silver-studded sword around my shoulder, slung my bow on too, and told our comrade, "Lead me back by the same way that you came." Odysseus is all of a sudden being way more heroic than he used to be. Instead of running away, which they could, Odysseus is like, "I will go, and alone, with only Eurylochus to guide me, to go save them." But he flung both arms around my knees and pleaded, begging me with his tears and winging words, "Don't force me back there, Captain, King. Leave me here on the spot. You will never return yourself, I swear. You'll never bring back a single man alive." So Eurylochus hugs Odysseus' knees and pleads with him, in the same way that Odysseus pled with Aeolus at the beginning of this chapter. And Eurylochus says, "Please don't make me go back there. Captain, King," right? He's trying to be a little bit, he's playing to Odysseus' status. "Captain, oh wait, you're also the king of Ithaca. Guy in charge, please, leave me here. You are not gonna return. I swear, I promise. Something will happen, you can't return, and you won't bring back any of the men who are missing. Quick, cut and run with the rest of us here. We can still escape the fatal day." Eurylochus says, "Look, Captain, King, Odysseus, you're never going to come back if you go in there. And you can't save anyone. So let's go. Let's just go. The rest of us, let's all get on the ship. We can still escape the fatal day. We can still survive. We can still live." But I shot back, "Eurylochus, stay right here, eating, drinking, safe by the black ship. I must be off. Necessity drives me on." So Odysseus does not listen to Eurylochus and just says, "Fine, stay here. I don't care. Eat, drink, whatever. But it is my job. It is my duty. It is necessity that I go and save these men as soon as possible." Leaving the ship and shore, I headed inland, clambered up through the hushed, entrancing glades until, as I was nearing the halls of Circe, skilled in spells, approaching her palace, Hermes, god of the golden wand, crossed my path, and he looked for all the world like a young man sporting his first beard, just in the prime and warm pride of youth, and grasped me by the hand and asked me kindly, Where are you going now, my unlucky friend, trekking over the hills alone in unfamiliar country? So Odysseus has left everyone behind and gone on his own. And as he gets close to Circe's hall, Circe skilled in spells, right? Circe the sorceress, Circe the one who practices witchcraft, Hermes the god of the golden wand, Hermes the messenger of the gods, Hermes one of the Olympians in Greek mythology, a god, stops in front of him. And then we get a description of what Hermes looks like. He looks like a young man who barely hit puberty, right? He's just got his first little scruffy beard on. Hermes grabs his hand, like a handshake, and then says, "You are so unlucky. Where are you going? Why are you going all over this very unfamiliar island? And your men are all in there, in Circe's palace, cooped like swine, hawk by jowl in the sties." So Hermes tells him what has happened. Hermes says, your men that you lost are in Circe's palace. They're in pens like pigs, and hawk by jowl, which are parts of a pig's body, they're in the pigsties. So he says, your men have been turned into pigs and are staying in the pens, in the pig pens. Have you come to set them free? Is this what you're doing? Is this why you're here? Well, I warn you, you won't get home yourself. You'll stay right there trapped with all the rest. So Hermes gives him the same warning Eurylochus does. You will never leave, and you'll get trapped like everyone else. But wait, I can save you free from that great danger. Look, here is a potent drug. Take it to Circe's hall. Its power alone will shield you from the fatal day. So Hermes says, you're never going to get home, but I can save you. Here is this herb, right? It says drug, but we're not thinking of it as a drug. It's more like a plant, something to protect Odysseus. And Hermes says, this is the only thing that can protect you from Circe, from the witch. Let me tell you of all the witch's subtle craft. She'll mix you a potion, lace the brew with drugs, but she'll be powerless to bewitch you even so. This magic herb I give will fight her spells. Now here's your plan of action step by step. So Hermes says, look, she's going to make a potion, but it won't work on you as long as you take this herb that I gave you. And then Hermes says, now here's what you're going to do. Here is how you will fight Circe. The moment Circe strikes you with her long, thin wand, you draw your sharp sword sheathed at your hip and rush her fast as if to run her through. So he says, when Circe hits you with the wand, it's not going to happen. You're going to just draw your sword and kind of try and stab her. Don't actually stab her with your sword, but rush at her as if you are going to stab her. She'll cower in fear and coax you to her bed. But don't refuse the goddess's bed, not then. Not if she's to release your friends and treat you well yourself. But have her swear the binding oath of the blessed gods. She'll never plot some new intrigue to harm you once you lie there naked. Never unman you, strip away your courage. So here's Hermes' plan. Take the herb, drink the wine. When Circe draws her wand, pretend like you will stab her with your sword. She's going to cower in fear. She's going to be afraid, of course. She's going to be like, ah! And then she's going to try and convince you to sleep with her. And he says, don't refuse the goddess's bed. So Hermes says, go sleep with her. If you don't, she will not release your friends or treat you well. So you have to sleep with her. You have to have sex with her in order for her to treat you well, in order for her to take care of your friends. With that, the giant killer handed over the magic herb. Giant killer is another name for Hermes. So Hermes hands over the magic herb, pulling it from the earth, and Hermes showed me all its name and nature. So Hermes digs up this herb, gives it to Odysseus, and tells him all about it. Its root is black and its flower white as milk, and the gods call it moly. Dangerous for a mortal man to pluck from the soil, but not for deathless gods. All lies within their power. So Hermes tells him, it will kill you if you tried to pick it. But because Hermes picked it, and he is a god, it doesn't hurt him, and it will not hurt Odysseus now. Because everything is within the power of the gods. Now Hermes went his way to the steep heights of Olympus, over the island's woods, while I, just approaching the halls of Circe, my heart a heaving storm at every step, paused at her doors, the nymph with lovely braids. I stood and shouted to her there. This is a long sentence to say, Hermes left, and Odysseus arrived at the door of Circe. She heard my voice. She opened the gleaming doors at once and stepped forth, inviting me in, and in I went, all anguish now. Odysseus knows what will happen inside, and he's putting all his faith into a single herb. And he's very worried, he's very scared, but he came inside anyways. She led me in to sit on a silver-studded chair, ornately carved with a stool to rest my feet, again showing off how rich she is. In a golden bowl, she mixed a potion for me to drink, stirring her poison in, her heart a-swirl with evil. So Odysseus does call her evil. That will change really quickly. And then she passed it on. I drank it down, but it never worked its spell. She struck me with her wand and, now, she cried, off to your sty, you swine, and wallow with your friends. So sty is where pigs live. Swine is another word for pigs. And wallow is what pigs do in the mud, right? So they like roll around and splash around. So she has hit him with her wand. Now he knows he has to draw his sword. But I drew my sharp sword sheathed at my hip and rushed her fast as if to run her through. She screamed, slid under my blade, hugged my knees with a warm flood of tears and a burst of winging words. Who are you? Where are you from? Your city, your parents? I'm wonderstruck. You drank my drugs. You're not bewitched. Never has any other man withstood my potion. Never. Once it's passed his lips and he has drunk it down. So Odysseus grabs his sword and runs at her as if he's going to stab her. She screams, hits the floor, right? So she crouches down, hugs Odysseus's legs, starts crying, and then asks him all of these questions. Who are you? Where are you from? What's your city? Where are your parents? Who are your parents? And then she admits she's wonderstruck, she's surprised, because no one else has ever been able to withstand any of her magic. Not just no one else, but no other man. This could be important, suggesting that either Circe's magic does not work on women, no women have ever showed up for Circe, or that Circe just does not enchant women. She's never tried it on women. You have a mind in you no magic can enchant. You must be Odysseus, man of twists and turns. Hermes the giant killer, god of the golden wand. He always said you'd come, homeward bound from Troy in your swift black ship. So she says, no one can change your mind. Hermes, again, god of the messengers, god of the golden wand, the giant killer, god of all sorts of things, one of the Olympians, Hermes, told her that Odysseus would come eventually when he's coming back from Troy. So now we know that gods can see the future. Come, sheathe your sword. Let's go to bed together. Mount my bed and mix in the magic work of love. We'll breed deep trust between us. So she's invited him to have sex with her. So she enticed, but I fought back, still wary. Circe, Circe, how dare you tell me to treat you with any warmth? You who turned my men into swine in your own house, and now you hold me here as well. Teeming with treachery, you lure me into your room to mount your bed. So once I lie there naked, you'll unman me, strip away your courage. Mount your bed? Not for all the world. Not until you consent to swear, goddess, a binding oath, you'll never plot some new intrigue to harm me. So he's following Hermes' plan. He says, Circe, you're asking me to treat you with warmth? To treat you with love and kindness? You turned my men into pigs. Now you're keeping me here captive. There is treachery, there is darkness, there is evil inside of you, and you're laying a trap. This is a trap. Now you want me to go to your room and have sex with you, just so that when I'm naked and I have no armor on, you will do something to me. You'll kill me, you'll cut me into pieces, you'll change me into an animal. Absolutely not. You have to promise. You have to swear a binding oath, a real promise that you are not ever going to find another way to hurt me. Straight away, she began to swear the oath that I required. She'd never do me harm. And when she finished, then at last I mounted Circe's gorgeous bed. So she promises never to hurt Odysseus, and that's kind of key, that it's only about him. And then when she promises, and she's done promising, then Odysseus has sex with her. So a quick recap of the chapter itself. Of this last section. Eurylochus ran back to the ship. He tells Odysseus that the men vanished and didn't return. He doesn't know where they went. Odysseus heads off towards Circe's palace. Before he gets there, he meets Hermes as a young man, and the god gives him this drug called moly that would make him immune to Circe's potion. And the god Hermes advises or tells Odysseus, when Circe touches you with her wand, run at her with your sword until she backs away in fear. And then she'll invite you to have sex with her. Hermes tells Odysseus to accept that offer, but only after she promises not to hurt him. So Odysseus' encounter with Hermes is another divine intervention. Earlier in the book, Hermes acts on behalf of Zeus, but right now, Zeus is angry at Odysseus, so Hermes seems to be acting on his own. Again, the god intervention is not direct. It is indirect, meaning that Hermes doesn't disable Circe or freeze her or kill her. Instead, he just gives Odysseus a tiny plant. When Odysseus walks into Circe's palace, everything happens just like Hermes predicted, and Circe then correctly guesses that this person must be Odysseus. So Odysseus acts fairly honorably in following Hermes' advice, but it's still kind of an uneasy place for us as readers, right? He threatens a woman with violence until she has sex with him. Odysseus keeps sleeping around with a lot of women, which doesn't seem to be a problem for him. His wife is at home. His wife is trying to be very faithful, poor Penelope. But Odysseus is sleeping around, and it doesn't seem to care. He doesn't seem to care. It doesn't seem to matter to him. Eurylochus has pointed out that his decision to return to the palace is risky. It's unwarranted. Hermes tells him the same thing. It's risky. He won't come back without God help. But maybe Odysseus likes risk. Maybe he feels a sense of duty toward his men. Maybe something else is happening. But we will find that out in the next video. I will stop here for today.